right then, everyone, let's get to it. So, some of the major stories that we will be looking at tonight: the Supreme Court judgment and the fact that the court has since granted a permission to Labour Party to inspect court election materials for the Saturday presidential election. This legal tussle seems to have started in earnest. So we get to all of that. A governor of the APC will be joining us, one of those who took the federal government to court over the matter of the Naira notes. We get some legal perspective also on the program. Stay with me, everyone. But first and foremost, there's so much stories that about the election of Saturday, next Saturday, that's Upper Saturday, March the 11th, and other political stories that we need to bring to you now.
The governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has asked the people of Oyo State to vote Governor Seyi Makinde for a second term when they go out to the polls on Saturday. Governor Wike was in Ibadan, where the Oyo State governor commissioned the Olunloyo Airport Road project.
That will be meaningful on Saturday, 11th, because when they suit us that day, you're going to pay them. As he paid them on Saturday, it's sweet.
The governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress in Ogun State, Mr. Olubiyi Otegbeye, has promised the people of Ado-Odo, Ota local government of developmental projects if elected as governor of the state. Mr. Otegbeye stated this while addressing the crowd of supporters of the ADC at his campaign rally in the area. Present at the rally is the former governor of the state, Senator Ibikunle Amosun, the deputy governorship candidate Olatunde Awonuga, and top ADC leaders. The Abia South senatorial candidate of the Labour Party in the just concluded elections in Abia State, Mr. Chinedu Onyezu, is asking the Independent National Electoral Commission to review the results of the election as it does not reflect the will of the people. He addressed journalists in Obingwa, local government area of Abia State. Mr. Onyezu notes that INEC has failed on its part by announcing the winner in an inconclusive election.
Now I want to know why in Abia State, or Abia South, the polling units that were affected, by perhaps cancellation of votes, overvoting, or no, or areas where there were no elections.
As the Labour Party prepares to challenge the outcome of the presidential election in court, the party's governorship candidate in Ebonyi State, Mr. Eze Oko, is asking members of the party to remain steadfast in order to secure victory at the March 11 governorship election. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, Mr. Oko said the party is prepared to produce the governor of Ebonyi State in addition to spreading its tentacles to other states. He appealed to members of the party not to be deterred by the outcome of the February 25, 2023 presidential election.
Mr. Peter Obi has actually, changed the narrative. What we used to have in the political space is not what is happening now.
The People's Democratic Party in Kwara State says it may form an alliance with other opposition parties ahead of the March 11 governorship election to wrestle power from the ruling All Progressives Congress. But on the flip side, the people of Obo Ayegunle community in Kwara South have expressed their determination to ensure the re-election of Governor Abdulrazak for second term. The All Progressives Congress in Cross River State has rejected the results of the February 25, 2023 elections conducted in the Northern Senatorial District polls in which Governor Ben Ayade lost. The state chairman of the party in the state, Mr. Alphonsus Oga, while addressing journalists at the AP Secretariat, notes that the senatorial election was marred by irregularities and intimidation by the military and promised to challenge the results in court. The People's Democratic Party in Yobe State has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to adhere to the provision of the Electoral Act by announcing the winner of the Yobe South senatorial candidate and all the pending results in the state. Addressing journalists in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital, the chairman of the party, Mr. Mar El Gash, notes that the PDP senatorial candidate, Mr. Halilu Mazagane, and Abubakar Waziri, who contested for the Federal House of Representatives, won the election. Mr. El-Gash therefore calls on INEC and security agencies to ensure neutrality throughout the exercise, as any interference to change the choice of the people will be resisted. The governorship candidate of the All Progressives Grand Alliance in Enugu State, Mr. Frank Weke, has alleged plans by the PDP in the state to compromise INEC officials and ad hoc staff to bypass the use of beavers and disrupt the governorship and House of Assembly elections in the state. Mr. Frank, who was speaking during the press conference in Enugu, also dismissed rumors that he has stepped down for the PDP governorship candidate in the state.
Tell everyone you know that Frank Nweke Jr. is in the governorship race to win it for the governor, for the good of Enugu.
Members of the Center for Transparency and Advocacy are calling for the arrest and prosecution of all INEC and security officials who compromise the electoral process. The group at a news conference in Abuja notes that the prosecution of such individuals will serve as a deterrent to others.
We now know the winner of the presidential election of Saturday. As far as what INEC has declared, Bola Tinubu of the APC. But what about the other elections held on the same day, the senatorial and the House of Reps elections? Let us see what we know now as far as those seats. There are 109 seats in the Senate, which is the red chambers. This is what we know as of now on those parties and how they have occupied or controlled the seats in the National Assembly. The APC seems to have taken control of the Senate with 51 seats so far. PDP 31, Labour Party 7, NNPP 2, ABGA 1, YPP 1, SDP 2. Out of all of these, 95 has been determined, and the rest, we understand, will be determined later. There are some elections that may be held on Saturday, 11th of March. Let's go to the Green Chambers now, and let's see just how the Green Chambers with 360 seats and how these have been occupied or controlled. Which political parties are controlling what? So far, this is what we know. Out of the 360 seats, APC seems to be in control of the majority of the seats with 88 seats, PDP 57, Labour Party 22, NNPP 3, ABGA 4, YPP 2, ADC 1. This is one of the few times that you have as much political parties having their presence in the National Assembly. For now, about 177 is what we know that yet unconfirmed, but we'll see how that pans out in the coming days as much as INEC is able to determine all of these seats. Let's tell you that the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, his counterpart, the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, have asked the Presidential Election Court in Abuja to allow them to inspect materials used for the February 25th election. Their request is contained in two expletive motions they filed at the PEC Secretariat at the Court of Appeal, Abuja. Both motions with the Independent National Electoral Commission and two others as respondents have been listed for hearing earlier today. Atiku filed his own on the 1st of March. Mr. Obi filed his own motion on the 2nd. But we understand that the court has granted Atiku and Obi permission to inspect the election materials. And today, the Supreme Court ordered that old 200 and 500 and 1,000 Naira notes remain in circulation till the 31st of December 2023. The Apex Court also nullified the federal government's Naira redesign policy, declaring it as an affront to the 1999 Constitution. Justice Emmanuel Agim, who read the lead judgment, held that the preliminary objections by the defendants, the Attorney General of the Federation, Bayelsa, and Edo State, are dismissed as the court has the jurisdiction to entertain the suit, citing Section 23, subsection 2 of the Constitution. The court held that a dispute between the federal government and the state must involve law or fact. The Apex Court further held that President Muhammadu Buhari, in his broadcast, admitted that the policy is flawed with a lot of challenges. Let me allow you to listen to some of the governors who went to court to challenge the federal government on this matter.
We are very grateful to the court for its unanimous decision and the orders it has given to the government, federal government of Nigeria, to ensure that from today till the 31st of December 2023, the old Naira notes of all denominations shall continue to circulate side by side with the new Naira notes. That's the major decision of the Supreme Court. The other decision is that the policy of currency confiscation, where you deposit money in the bank and the bank chooses what to give you, is unlawful and illegal and shall end forthwith. So Nigerians can go to the bank and collect whatever they have deposited and get on with their lives. Those that said that we went to the court because of elections are wrong. We went to the court because our people in our states are suffering and businesses in our states are coming to a halt and lives were being destroyed. That's why we went to court. We left elections in the hands of God and we all know the result. Even though this policy was designed to ensure that we did not win the presidential elections, we have won.
This particular decision today has proven that Nigerian law is a respecter of no one, including Mr. President. Nobody can take the laws for granted and go scot-free. This is what it has proven today. I congratulate Nigerians. I congratulate the common man. And I sympathize and condole those that have lost their lives in this struggle.
It's not about me or about El-Rufai or about Bello. It is about the Nigerians. Therefore, we have made it today, and we thank all the judges. 7 of them give same judgment. So we thank all of them, and we thank all of you for being here to see all the proceedings, and we know we have won this battle.
All right. Those are some of the governors who were on the side. They were the ones who took the federal government to court. There are other colleague governors also went to support the federal government, that's the Bayelsa and Edo State, saying that, well, the federal government stand is right. I have one of the governors who went to court here with me in the studio. Governor Yaya Bello of Kogi State joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Shil. And would I say Happy New Year once again? And
see you physically for the first time
exactly
this year.
In the studio. And good evening, viewers in Nigeria and across the world.
Thank you so much for joining us. How do you feel? You challenge your party's position. You challenge your very good friend, President Buhari's directives, and the CBN's policy, and the Supreme Court, and you came victorious yourself and your colleagues. How does that make you feel?
Thank you very much. It is not an issue of a victory or victor and vanquish in this particular case. Yes, definitely. If you look at the 3 of us, myself, Governor El-Rufai, and Governor Matawale of Zamfara State, we are among those that are very close to Mr. President. And we are among those that are very loyal to our party, the All Progressives Congress. But at the same time, all of us, all the APC governors, and it will interest you that some PDP governors are passionate about this country, and we have the love of our people at heart. Of course, Mr. President, our father and our leader, is a man that have the compassion and love of all at heart, and hence he's been president today. And you know surely that Mr. President came up with so many programs and policies that touched on the lives of Nigerians. Mr. President is winding down. People like us would want Mr. President to finish very strong. And as such, a policy came up that is ill-managed, ill-implemented, and ill-timed, that is ravaging this country, affecting the common man and everyone in this country, affecting our economy, affecting the smooth running of our states. We swore to protect lives and livelihood in our state, and this policy is impeding on that. And hence, we have to, after various attempts to ensure that we think through this particular policy, have failed. have no any option than to recourse than to go to court. And today, we've been vindicated. The party have been vindicated, and Mr. President himself is appreciative of the decision of the Supreme Court. And
have you gotten a feedback from the president?
Well, we have been Mr. President's children, and we know that Mr. President himself is relieved today that the people of this country are going to have their life back again. I mustn't necessarily have a feedback from him. So, to the glory of God, Nigerians have their lives back. And let me once again use this opportunity on behalf of myself and my colleagues, including APC governors and few PDP governors, people like Governor Wike of Rivers State, Governor Ifeanyi Governor of Abia State, and the Governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, and host of all of us, the leaders, appreciate Nigerians, including the media, for standing tall and firm in this particular trying moment of ours. I use this opportunity to appreciate the Supreme Court who came through for us. This is not just all about Naira redesign. The Supreme Court decision of today has touched so many fabrics of our lives, especially democracy and how democracy should be run in this country. And it has laid a solid foundation as to whether we are ripe for restructuring or true fiscal federalism. Supreme Court has really laid the ball, and I think let us not miss this wonderful opportunity.
The question is, and I'll get to the meat of what the Supreme Court said and the import of that. The big question those your critics were raising when you went to court at first was that this was all politics. And the main reason why you did it, or you went to court, was all politics. And they have actually questioned the intention or the genuineness of your going to court. Because they have raised the fact that you have not gone to court on some other policies that have affected the lives and livelihoods of average Nigerians. But perhaps you ran to court on a policy that hinges on politics on one hand, and it's because you think it was going to affect you politically. That's why some of your colleagues went to court. How do you react to that?
There is unfortunate that some people are thinking that way. There has been several cases and incidences where we governors have to take issues up, in court. I'll not go into that. Let Nigerians make research into that. That is number one. Number two, yes, some people felt that it's because of this just concluded presidential and National Assembly election. Far from that. Politics is being played every day, not necessarily because of that last election, but we know surely that the policy is affecting every average Nigerian. There are those who have lost their lives as a result of this particular policy, either due to riot or uprising, or those who went to hospital to just merely buy a medication, and they cannot buy it. And there are those that have died of hunger. There are millions of Nigerians that live daily on what they are able to earn. Local economies are being, crippled. Those of us that are securing our various states today, especially those of us that are performing security-wise, it is impeding on our performance. And if we now say that we should sit behind and allow this to continue so that we won't be accused of politics, then things will go out of hand. Then why are we in office as governor, as or as leaders in our various rights today? So if anybody is thinking that way, it's most unfortunate. But I want to tell you that it is far from that. If it is because of politics or because of election, the election has come and gone. We have produced a president-elect today in the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, waiting to be sworn in on 29th of May this year by the special grace of God. So it has nothing to do with that.
How do you convince the viewers tonight, those who think that this was all politics, that you did not have the interest of the average Nigerians at heart? And on what occasion have you really gone to court, to the Supreme Court, to challenge the federal government on behalf of Nigerians?
I'm sure you are aware of a particular case that borders on Paris Club refund you call it consultancy fee, about $418 million or $1 billion. We challenge the federal government on that. And there are a host of others, like I said. We are talking of, see, let me tell you today. Sheil, you can't boast of 1,000 Naira in your pocket today. You can't boast of it. And number two, the policy is more or less like policy of funds confiscation. Packaged so beautifully. But Mr. President was deceived in the implementation.
Who are those deceiving them? Some of your colleagues have said that. But Nigerians are still, you are members of your party. How difficult is it to know who are these the people that you said are deceiving him?
See, every time you talk of our political party, look, in APC, we disagree to agree. That is why we are serving the public. In APC, we think through our policies before it is being implemented or brought to the public. And those that are not well thought over before implementation, that we know is going to affect the people, we will resist it. Part of which is this Naira redesign and every other issues that are contained in it. So those that are advising Mr. President economically misled Mr. President. In this particular instance, they didn't get it right.
Are they members of your party?
Of course, some are members of our party, and some are inherited PDP members in the party. They are inherited PDP members in the party. Where have you ever seen APC policy being implemented and you see opposition praising it? This has happened in this particular instance.
So is there any intention of these people you said have deceived? Because some of the allegations or some of the things that Governor El-Rufai said is the fact that these are just meant to make your party lose. Is that true?
Governor El-Rufai have his facts, and we have our facts.
And what are the facts?
The facts are that there are those who have special interests other than interests of this country, and they felt this is the way to take a pound of flesh.
And there are you're saying there are fifth columnists in your party.
If you watch series of my comments publicly, I have said Mr. President have the best of intentions and good policies for this country. And there are too many to mention. But there are those saboteurs, those that Mr. President have really invested confidence in, trust, and they betrayed Mr. President. And people like us that love Mr. President will not sit idle by and allow his name to be dragged into the mud. We have to take measures to make sure that does not happen. And part of which is this going to court. And today, we've been vindicated. And I want to believe that Mr. President would know those who really would love him.
Now, you were in court and you listened to the judgment.
Yeah.
There were a few indictments here and there.
You said?
There were a few indictments here and there that the Supreme Court gave in its delivery of the judgment. And part of some of the wrongs that the Supreme Court highlighted is the decision and the directive of President Buhari. How do you feel as an APC member, an ally of President Buhari, when the Supreme Court said the president was in breach of the Constitution?
Well, the truth be told, we were before the apex court in the land. After the Supreme Court, it is God Almighty. As a person, I shook my head. Because I would never allow Mr. President to be misled into taking decision.
Did you have the opportunity to speak to him and convince him otherwise?
Well, sometimes when those who have certain pecuniary interests, are at work, you can be shielded away. And I don't talk, I don't complain. I just do my work.
But they shielded you people away. They didn't allow you to prevail on the president. Is that the case?
Even those that came up with such policies, we engaged them severally and they refused to bend. They refused to see reasons with us.
Did you confront them that you think that this was political?
Let me tell you, it was in one of these, our meetings, that we invited some of them to come and make a presentation about this policy. Upon the presentation of the policies or what they want to implement, we challenge them. And you could see those that have made up their mind, they are completely blind to the truth, to see the reality. Their heart was completely blocked from seeing the reality. And one has no option.
I mean, you think this was targeted?
And that was when we now took that decision that, look, we have to challenge this in court. So it was more or less like out of frustration. Leave the election out of it. You see so many properties being burnt. You walk through the streets and you see people queuing, sleeping in ATMs, in banks. You see businesses, small businesses crumbling. You see people dying. You visit hospitals, you see people dying. And these are people that we came to serve on the altar of ill advice from just few individuals. So we have no option than to go this way. And it is not just the decision of just the three of us. All the APC governors and at least 3 PDP governors. So we are unanimous in this particular action.
Now, in all of this, what would you say is a major lesson that came out for you? Apart from the fact that the CBN had also said, I mean, the Supreme Court has said, even the policy on the restriction of the limit of spending was illegal. I mean, it was not right. That's one of the position of the CBN. You were there. I mean, that's the position of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But as a governor, between the dichotomy between the federal government and the state government, what do you think was a major lesson that came out to you from the judgment of the Supreme Court?
First of all, no president will ever come and lead this country and take a unilateral decision. Not even governor will sit down and think you can take a unilateral decision. We've been able to be educated once again that, look, these are federating units. The lands belong to the states. The people are in the states. Before you can govern successfully, come up with any policy that will touch on the lives of the people, or that will either impact positively or negatively in the way and manner governors will run their affairs, you must do proper consultation. The ground norm, the Constitution envisaged that on how decisions are arrived at. So that is a major lesson that we should learn in this particular decision. Nobody should ever abuse his office. Whether you are elected or you are appointed, you must follow the rule of law.
Is that the only thing that came out to you?
There are several. If I continue to mention them here,
because there are dictatorial tendencies that were also highlighted.
Well, that is why
in that judgment. And I would like to ask you: you wanted to be president of Nigeria, but I don't know if you have killed that idea, or if that the idea still. Do you still want to be president of Nigeria? Is that still a potential?
Today we have a president-elect, and the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And as much as I have supported the regime of President Muhammadu Buhari, I am ready to support Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration.
Or do you still want to
succeed?
Do you still want to be president in the nearest future?
The future belongs to God Almighty, and only Almighty Allah have that decision to make for me as we move forward. But for now, I have a task at hand in Kogi State, and I am duty-bound to support my party. I am duty-bound to support President-to-be, by the grace of God, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to succeed. And we must give him advice and guide him to ensure that he succeeds beyond even Mr. President. Despite all the achievements of Mr. President, we want Asiwaju to achieve and succeed even more than him. And that is even the dream of our leader, President Muhammadu Buhari.
So the question I was going to ask is, if there were dictatorial tendencies that were highlighted by the Supreme Court as displayed in the policy and the directive of the president, is there an aspect of our laws that you think should be amended in this respect?
This issue of dictatorial tendency that you keep repeating, let me tell you, Mr. President is one person that...
It is not me.
Once...
It was what was captured, and I'm using it to ask questions.
So, you know, rightly so. Mr. President is one person that once he gives you responsibility, he allows you to carry it out. Once he trusts you, he will give it to you 100%. One other lesson that any leader and all of us should learn is that don't trust human being 100% any longer. When you give an assignment or a responsibility, supervise and ensure that the person carried out that responsibility the best way it should. And Mr. President may have acted innocently based on the advice given to him. Unknown to him, these guys have an ulterior motive. So, I think Mr. President should have learned his lesson from this. And those of us that are upcoming, we should learn our lesson from this.
We understand that the president is apologizing and he said he never meant to inflict pain on Nigerians. He truly thought that this was going to help the economy. Without even seeing that apology, Mr. President is a compassionate father, a compassionate leader, a president that have the interests of the Talakawas at hand, at heart. And in his speech, he did, in his speech he did recognize that this particular policy is touching on the fabrics of the economy and is affecting the people, but that he's looking for ways to ameliorate the sufferings of the people. That is compassionate. He realizes that. So he wouldn't want to be a dictator who would want to put the lives of the people, at risk or in jeopardy. But there are those that took that decision and insisted. There are several things I can say here. What Mr. President directed them to do immediately to even avert the whole of this problem we are in today. But they refused to do it. Mr. President will not come and address the press and say, look, I have asked these people to do this and they refuse to do. So that is how Mr. President was, was kept in cocoon, let me put it that way. But thank God, all of these are out today. So you look at the election of Bola Tinubu and the opposition coming from the opposition party, they've gone to court, they're rejecting it. Yeah. Does it in any way taint that victory? Election of 2023, presidential and National Assembly election have come and gone. To the glory of God, we have President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In every contest, there must be a winner and a loser. And of course, you can't stop those that lose from venting their grievances and pointing out flaws. In every system of governance, none is perfect 100%, or electioneering, none is perfect 100%. But let me tell you that substantially, INEC followed their guidelines and the rules of the game. Our president-elect today followed all these guidelines and the rules, and today he has emerged the president-elect. All I could tell my brothers and leaders, Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, and the followers, multitude of the followers, is to please calm down. Let us have Nigeria first. Let us live in peace. Let us support Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to implement the laudable programs and policies that is coming up with, as contained in his roadmap, the Renewed Hope 2023. Once you are not satisfied, I'm happy that they are taking the legal and very lawful means to seek redress, but we should not overheat the polity. Let me touch on a few things in your home state. This matter, what can you tell us about the allegations against you by EFCC vis-a-vis the forfeiture properties of the properties believed to be linked to you? It's a joke taken too far. What do you mean by that? It's a joke taken too far. I think it's just a media witch hunt. Political witch hunt or media propaganda. Let me put it that way. Against myself and the government of Kogi State. A government that is being rated 4 years back to back by World Bank and other rating bodies, both locally and internationally,
to come top in terms of transparency, accountability, and proper judicious utilization of resources. I don't know where they're coming up.
What about the arrests that have been made in that respect?
Yes, of course, these are still the political witch hunt, I said.
Why do you think they're witch hunting you, if that's true?
The reason is best known to them. The reason is best known to them. Well, the matter have been taken to court. It's in court, and we have competent lawyers that are handling it, and I can assure you that it is a fluke. Sheung, I rise up to this level today with my integrity. I will leave office with my integrity high. I will never do anything that will dent it. What I have and what I'm building and what I will ever cherish is my name and integrity. And I will never allow anybody to drag into mud. And that is why we decided to choose the very legal and lawful means of ensuring that we have indicated. An allegation is not yet, what do you call it? Allegation is mere allegation. Until proven by competent court of law, you can never ascribe me to such alleged crime or misdeed. And besides, we have an anti-graft agency that you and I know does not respect the law, does not respect court orders. And that has been confirmed by a competent court of law.
All right, let me take you to a bit of politics. It was very heated in your state. Your opposition, the opposition in your state feels that you are after them. In fact, very loudly, the senatorial PDP senatorial candidate Natasha Apoti alleged that you went and dug the road so that she won't be able to have access to our area, just for her to campaign and have access. Is that you doing that? And why would that happen?
First of all, I am not contesting for Senate. I'm not contesting for Senate. So let her and the contestant or the winner of that particular contest slug it out in the appropriate court of law.
So you don't have a hand in it?
That is number one. Number two, I am the leader of my political party in Kogi State. And I'm duty-bound to ensure that my party wins, and win cleanly. And that we have done, and we have won cleanly. Many seats, and for our president. Thirdly, I am the chief security officer of the state. And I'm sure you know I have earned a lot of awards, presidential and several non-profit organizations, both home and abroad, on security in Kogi State. I know the architecture and the roots of those that come to foment trouble. Before elections like this, we carry out assessments and see exactly where the enemies are coming from, especially those that are headbent in killing our people. Let me just give you a short reminder if you don't know. In 2019, my cousin was killed shortly before this election, before the last 2019 general elections in Okene, Yusuf Adabenege. Oboju was killed in that same election. Kamal was killed in that election. Moshood was killed in that election. My PA domestic was attempted. He sustained bullet wounds, and a policeman was killed in that particular election. That is prior to the election, about a week or two to the election. My chief of staff was attempted. It was out of bravery that he was able to apprehend one before the general public came to his rescue. These were attempts. And we trace their roots. When they come to commit this offense, there are routes that they escape through. And this time around, we say, okay, we know what we're going to do for them. We are not going to give them access road to us again. There are several entry and exit into some of these, our major cities and towns. So in our security meeting, State Security Council meeting, we decided to ensure that these various routes be rendered impassable for them. And that we did. And that incidence of killing reduced to its barest minimum. We have the intelligence. We have the information when and how they will come. And we decided to prevent them. And that's exactly what happened. Campaigns were run smoothly in Kogi State. Nobody was hindered. Every political parties, participated in that campaign. So nobody stopped anyone.
So there was somewhat a destruction of the infrastructure of the state on the altar of security.
Look, if I have to pull down a building to secure lives and livelihood, I will do that. If I have to cut off a road to protect lives and livelihoods for a moment and fix it back, I will do that.
Have you heard what Natasha is saying? Is pointing accusing finger at you. And I probably will love, for the sake of equity, for you to actually listen to a few of things that she said. Maybe you can respond to it. Because she said you are the one behind it. And you said, she said she has her fears about the reason why you are doing it. Do you want to listen to it so you respond? Just for a moment. Let's listen to Natasha Akpoti here.
9 polling units did not have their elections on the 25th of February. Materials were not delivered and INEC offices did not present themselves. At that point, I knew that the governor had targeted that Ganaja as an axis to rig, just in case his Okene plan failed. All right, the 9 polling units were slated for elections 2 days ago, which is the 26th, a day after the general elections. We deployed security to ensure that there was no violence, and the people came out in their numbers. I'm even told that churches had to close early so the people can go out and vote because it was a Sunday. The elections finished around 2 a.m. that day, that's the next day, yesterday. And I tell you this, I, Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, won all of the 9 polling units with great numbers. It would interest the good people of Nigeria to know that the majority of these 9 polling units were outrightly cancelled yesterday upon frivolous petitions by the APC.
All right, Governor Bello, one would be wondering what exactly is going on. She keeps mentioning your name as the one after her. Can you tell Nigerians tonight that you really do not have anything against her? Because when she mentioned your name in all of this.
I don't know why my name is so sweet in her mouth that she will continue to mention and mention and mention. You see, let me tell you, Nigerians and Sean, do you know I never for once lose sleep over her mentioning my name, either rightly or wrongly. You know why? Because she knows exactly what is paining her.
What would that be?
I don't know. And I don't have any.
She was a member of your party before now.
There are several other members of my party that have left.
Could it be that she's a threat politically in that your area? You are from the same senatorial district.
Look, let me tell you. I have one of my elder advisory council member from my immediate local government who decamped weeks into the general election. His polling unit, he could not even score 1. Who decamped to PDP, he could not even score 1. That is that. You see, I am the leader of the party. I am the leader of the state. I am the chief executive officer of the state. Natasha is one of my subjects. I am duty-bound to protect each and every one of them. And let me tell you, except today, I will never sit down and open to any clip of hers and listen.
Have you seen the clip online about one of the chairmen being caught tearing allegedly? Have you seen that?
One of my security aides brought it to my attention, and I think the security agencies are handling that. They will determine the veracity of that particular one, so I will not go into that. So please, I think Nigerians should simply ask Natasha, what does she really want? That every now and then Today, she's contesting for this position. Whether I'm contesting it or not, she'll be mentioning me. Tomorrow, she's contesting for another. Whether I'm there or not, she'll be mentioning me. Please ask her, what does she want?
All right, Governor Yaya Bello, we are totally out of time. Well, I mean, you are a governor of Kogi State. It will be unfair for me, on the behalf of the people of your state, not to ask you. I mean, you're not running for governor again. In the next few months, there will be a governorship election in your state. But if there is one thing you think the people of Kogi State will remember you for as a legacy, what do you think that would be?
Unity. Securing the life of our people and ensuring that the resources of the people work for them entirely.
And you think you have utilized the resources to the utmost of your ability for the good of the people of Kogi State?
To the best of my ability, all our financials are out there, online, and it has been certified to be among the best as far as the 36 states and FCT is concerned in Nigeria by World Bank and several other rating bodies. And the infrastructure is there. Let me tell you, when Mr. President came, Mr. President, when he came to commission our project, he asked me and turned to me and said, where did you get all this money from that you utilize in putting all these infrastructures together? And that is to tell you how much we utilize the resources, the meager resources of our people for them.
Governor Yaya Bello, Governor of Kogi State, thank you so much indeed. It's a pleasure having you tonight on the program.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time.
God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, viewers.
All right, we'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, we'll dig deeper into the Supreme Court judgment of today. What does this mean? Not only for the body of our laws, for Nigeria, for the economy, and for the unity of this country. Stay with me, everyone. More insight into that after now. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. I'm being joined now to get more perspective on the Supreme Court judgment and what this means, the implication, and all of the perspectives that have been drawn into the matter by Professor Agbo Madaki, who is a professor of law. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight. It's good to see you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Sheryl.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's start. Are you surprised by the position of the Supreme Court?
I wouldn't say that I'm surprised by the position of the Supreme Court. You know, when the matter was filed and then the interim injunction was granted, I think it was simply a foretaste of what to come in the future. You know, because considering the sensibility of the matter, the nature of the matter, you know, the gravity of the matter, for the Supreme Court to have issued an interim injunction at the time it did, to my mind, it was a foretaste of what to come. So I'm not surprised at the final outcome by way of the judgment of the Supreme Court that was delivered today.
Senior lawyers like you disagreed on whether or not an expert could actually come from the Supreme Court on such a matter, that in fact the agency of government that was involved was not even joined in the case. I mean, do you see any inconsistency in terms of the procedure of filing cases or approaching the Supreme Court?
Well, you know, the Chief Justice of Nigeria is virtually the head of the Nigerian judiciary, so to say, and then the court has issued practice directive repeatedly, even in terms of the rules of conduct for judicial officers in the country on the issuance of injunctions, especially interim injunctions or interlocutory injunctions, as the case may be. And usually an interim injunction will be granted in the case of extreme urgency, requiring the necessity to preserve the rest as the case may be. And if, and only if, it is that necessary and important to grant an interim injunction, which will actually imply not hearing the other party, then such an injunction could be granted. Otherwise, ordinarily, the principles or doctrines of interim injunction actually negates the principle of fair hearing as enshrined under Section 36 of the Constitution, because it requires that in determining the rights of every citizen or person or institution, you must hear both sides of the case or the other party. And that is why the life of an interim injunction usually is about 7 days. So it is not mute, or do I say an academic exercise to begin to x-ray that particular interim injunction that was granted.
In any case, who can challenge the position of the Supreme Court?
But then one would have asked, that was there real urgency? And was there a rest to be preserved, and if not preserved, that would have been destroyed?
For the sake of our viewers who may not get the idea of what a rest is, I mean, when you say was there a rest, what do you mean?
You see, is there something that can be preserved that if it is not preserved would have been destroyed if you allowed the case to run its full gamut or its full length to conclusion? If that interim injunction was not given, if you ask me with the greatest respect to the Judas, and I have the greatest respect for the Supreme Court of Nigeria, if you ask me that interim injunction at that particular time wasn't necessary, knowing fully well that from the onset, the Supreme Court was very determined to hear that matter speedily, which of course they have done. So all that would have happened was to simply order that, put the other party on notice, and then hear the motion on notice. And then if it is necessary, having had both sides, then you may now issue an interlocutory injunction. To my mind, that would have been the proper thing to do.
Before we look at the other allied issues that the Supreme Court raised in the obiter, and
yes,
let's look at the meat of the matter. The Supreme Court now said, for the fact, the 200, 500, 1,000 Naira notes will be, the old notes will be valid and will be legal tender upon the 31st of December 2023. That trumps the position of the CBN and the directive of President Buhari. Give us in layman terms what this means.
First and foremost, the question we need to ask ourselves is whether the Central Bank of Nigeria is legally positioned or empowered to redesign the Naira or put it in a legal term to withdraw any currency from circulation. If you ask me, my answer in that regard, that it's yes. Especially if you go by the redundant and notorious Section 20 of the CBN Act, especially subsection 3 of it, that empowers them in that behalf. I mean, with the acquisition, with the directive of Mr. President, yes, that they can do. But if you look at that Section 20, subsection 3 in particular, it talks of giving reasonable notice. And if you realize, what the Supreme Court anchored its decision on is that absence of reasonable notice. What is reasonable in the circumstances? You are talking of a country of over 200 million. You are talking of trillions of Nairas in the hands of Nigerian citizens, money earned by them, and then suddenly, in one fell swoop, maybe in a space of less than 2-3 months, you now come up with this policy and say, if you don't change it, and yet you have the door locked against them, the possibility and the opportunity for them to change this money for the new one simply wasn't there. Other than the fact that Nigerians were going to lose their hard-earned income, I can assure you that it means the right to life. The right to life as enshrined under Section 33 of the Constitution is already being violated, being threatened to be violated, as the case may be. And it is the duty of the law, it's the duty of the Judas, it is the duty of the court not to wait until irreparable damages would have been done before, before taking action. And that's why the law is very clear that anyone who feels that any of his rights has been threatened, is being threatened, and likely to be breached, that you can apply to the court. So if you ask me, the notice was absolutely insufficient. And it has caused incalculable damage, not just to the economy, to the psyche, to the mentality, and to the health and the well-being of individual and the
What
nation.
about the intent of that policy?
If you ask me...
Because, I mean, sorry, according to the president, he said, for economic reasons.
You don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. If the government feels that there's too much money in the informal sector, I mean, outside the banking system, is that the best way to go about it? I'll give you a classical example. So many years ago, the government of Nigeria set up toll gates at all major federal roads. Because of the palpable corruption that they were not accounting for that money, those toll gates were destroyed. Is that the solution? Why don't you plug the leakages so that this money can be recovered for the maintenance of the road? So if too much money was outside the banking system, it's not redesigning the Naira, there's a solution. Even though the part to do that is versus the CBN. I mean, the CBN, the law is very clear under Section 1, Subsection 3, that they will have that independence to manage the economy, the physical policy of the country in terms of the currency, as the case may be. Yes, they can do, but I think there would have been better way, you know, of ensuring that this money outside the banking system will get into the bank. Because the primary duty of government is the well-being of the citizenry. And I think that any government policy that appears to be anti-people, antithetical to that purpose, it obviously must be a very bad policy. So if you ask me of the intendment, my action is that the intendment is wrong. And that's why a lot of political reasons have been read to it,
so do you
considering
think
the timing.
There political exigency in all of this, or political reasons drawn to it?
If you ask me, the people in government, when I'm talking of people in government, be they elected, especially those appointed, the appointive offices actually tried to justify that nobody was going to buy votes this time around. They didn't mean so. They were very, very clear on it. So if that be the position, then I think the reason was more political than economic, if you ask me.
Do you think that the position of the Supreme Court today, in some way, either minimal or maximal, will impact on the independence of the CBN?
If it will impact on the independence of the CBN, it will be positive, not negative. The CBN Act is very clear that the CBN ought to be independent. So if you notice what have happened, CBN traded its independence. Traded it in the sense that even though they had consultation with Mr. President, and even though Mr. President gave the directive, if you notice, instead of the CBN to make the announcement, to give the notice, more or less it is Mr. President that was usurping the functions of CBN, if you ask me. It wasn't the duty or responsibility. That power was never seized to the President under the CBN Act or the Constitution, that the President could order an extension or could announce an extension. No.
My fear here, Prof,
yes,
is some of the decision and actions of the CBN is also already in motion, which counters the position of the Supreme Court as of today, that those notes should be in circulation up on the 31st. But CBN has said substantially it has withdrawn those notes out of circulation. What do you see any action that is contravening, that could contravene the position of the Supreme Court?
You see, the truth of the matter is that if decisions of courts, even be it the lowest court in the country, are not obeyed, it's an invitation to chaos and anarchy, and the system could implode on the entire nation. Once a decision is valid and subsisting, all persons exercising legislative, judicial, and executive function must obey it. And that's what the mantra of the rule of law is all about, the supremacy of the law above all other persons and above all other institutions.
Prof, so let me pause it for a moment. When we come back from a break, I would like to know the other part of the judgment on the position of the Supreme Court today in relation to President Muhammadu Buhari. The Supreme Court said that the president was in breach of the Constitution. Now, the House of Representatives Speaker is already speaking, and he says there will be some kind of tinkering on the laws that guide the action and the activities of the CBN. We'd like to get your views on that. I will come back from this break. That will be what we'll be focusing on. Stay with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's get back to the conversation with Professor Agbo Madaki. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Law at the Base University. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time tonight. There are aspects of the position of the stance of the Supreme Court today. We touched on the directive of the president. In fact, the Supreme Court also touched on the issue of the policy and on the restriction of how much a person or a corporate organization can spend. And the Supreme Court said the president was in breach of the Constitution.
Of course.
How do you describe that? And what are the implications?
If you ask me, that is the most interesting and most exciting aspect of the judgment that was delivered by the Supreme Court of Nigeria today. You know, money, by the definition of money, money is actually property. And over 20 years ago, I argued successfully in an enforcement proceeding that money is property before Justice Eko, when he was on the Benue State High Court. So money is property. And so if you look at it under section 44 of the Nigerian Constitution, dealing with the rights to property. You cannot unjustly deprive anybody of his property. The money belongs to you. It is your property. So nobody has the right to determine how much of it you can spend or how much of it you can withdraw at any given time. If you ask me, that policy directive, either from Mr. President, and I think in that case is the Central Bank of Nigeria, is not only illegal, but very much unconstitutional, very arbitrary.
Was there an indictment of the president? If the Supreme Court says the action of the president is a breach of the Constitution, is that an indictment?
Would I call it an indictment? Just like the Supreme Court itself, Supreme Court has had reason to say repeatedly that yes, we are the final court, but we are not infallible. We are infallible because we are the final court, as the case may be. Mr. President, yes, he has his body of advisors, but he does not have exclusive repository of knowledge and a president that knows it all. So he's bound to either make pronouncement or make policy decisions that may be opposite and contrary to the happiness of the larger majority. And that is why institutions and organs have been put in place, especially under the Constitution, like the National Council of State, which is one of the governmental body to advise Mr. President on policy matter. And then you also have the National Economic Council, which is also another organ of government to address Mr. President on issues of economic policy. And I think what may have happened is failure of Mr. President to draw from the pool of this expertise knowledge in arriving at the decision. So if you want it in terms of semantics and English, of course, it is an indictment of Mr. President.
So there are also far-reaching consequences. So the Speaker of the House of Representatives released a statement today. What fascinated me in part of that statement was the last paragraph, which I'd like you to weigh in on quickly. It says in the last paragraph, while we anticipate action by the central bank, there is still a need to examine and understand how this policy intervention turned out in the way it did. The House of Representatives will exercise its authority to review the actions and inactions, the failures of law and procedure that set the conditions for this profound failure of public policy. This is necessary to ensure we take the right legislative actions to prevent future recurrence. It looks to me like an investigation of some sort. Or how do you read it?
No, even if you call it an investigation, the Constitution empowers the National Assembly, to carry out such investigation. And that is why for us as teachers, and the basic rudiment of constitutional law, when we teach the doctrines of separation of power, we also tell them that there's no absolute separation of power, because even the National Assembly can exercise partial judicial functions and also executive functions, as the case may be. Just like the judiciary could also exercise quasi-legislative functions, as the case may be. But let us not forget the fact that Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution vests the legislative powers of the Federation on the National Assembly, which is bicameral. And the Federal House of Representatives is one of the arms, one of the chambers of the National Assembly, as the case may be. But the most important thing is that the Constitution is very clear that if they are making any law, it must be for the good governance of the country. So any law that is to be made must not be opposite and contrary to the generality of the interests of the people. And that is why we try to examine the relationship between the law and the society. If you are going to make any law and it's not going to promote the happiness of the larger majority, obviously it will be a bad law. So in view of the Supreme Court decision, on which side is the National Assembly standing? If the National Assembly is standing with the Supreme Court, and I think this is one moment the Supreme Court has given a judgment that is a reflection of what the society wants. But, there's a reflection of what the society wants. So if the National Assembly is thinking of tinkering with the CBN Act, I would say that the primary consideration is the happiness of Nigerians and not to the contrary.
And it brings me to how I want us to anchor tonight, just in 30 seconds, because the Supreme Court is a court of policy. And this looked to me like another policy that has been delivered from the kitchen of the highest court in the land. In 30 seconds, if you can tell us, what do you think is the biggest lesson coming out of the judgment of the Apex Court today for the nation?
Number one, whosoever has been saddled with the responsibility by Nigerians to rule this country, you must act pursuant to the interests of Nigerians who have elected you, because you hold this power in trust for Nigerians. even though chapter 12 of the Nigerian Constitution is not justiciable, section 12 of it is very clear that sovereignty belongs to the people. And if you look at it, the doctrine of lawmaking, whatever law the legislators are making, whatever executive function Mr. President is exercising, he exercises it on behalf of the people because the people have donated that power to him by way of electing as Mr. President. So my final take of it is that whosoever exercises power in this country, be it judiciary, be it legislative, be it the executive, they must exercise this fairly and in the interest of Nigerians.
All right. Thank you so much. I've gotten
and exactly that is what the oath of office subscribed to by Mr. President.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I learned a lot from the Supreme Court judgment today. The fact also that absoluteness should not emerge from the decision of those who are involved. Thank you so much indeed. Professor Agbo Madaki is a professor of law and the dean of the Faculty of Law at the Bayes University. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time.
It's a privilege.
Thank you so much. That's our show for tonight, everyone. I'll see you on Sunday at 8 p.m. There's something that will surprise you. I'll be of interest on that show on Sunday. Don't miss it for anything. I'll see you again at 8 p.m. Bye for now, everyone.